Tēnā ake e te iwi o Ngāti Tūwharetoa. We are back into it and we are doing our On Kaupapa podcast. On Kaupapa today is taiao. Ka noho tuakana ko te taiao. Ki roto i ngā kōrero, so important. And joining us on our On Kaupapa podcast today, e mihi ana kia koe te tuahine Heni mō ka tūhono mai ki te kōrero ki tō taiwa iwi o Ngāti Tūwharetoa. Tēnā whakamārama ki te iwi, no hea koe, no e hea hapu koe, hea hoki wāu mahi.
Well, tēnā rā tātou e te wānau i te tuatai no Tūwharetoa au, no Karauria mā, no Tokānu au, no te wānau Wakatii, engari mena ka rongo ki tōku nei mita, no Wanganui uki ki te awa tupua, ko Ngāti Rua ka te apu kei reira, aku atu karanga, no nai tū oe no Ngāti ka ununu ki te Wairoa, no rongo mai wa ine oki. I tēnei wā e no ana au ki rātanapa.
Nau mai, haere mai me o wheakoranga o Pukenga, ka huri tēnei ki te reo, pihi ke tei tēnei wā. You know, I'm looking at content online of your mahi, and I'm like, whoa.
Oh, no, you didn't Google me, did you?
I did Google you.
No.
Hey, we have to do a Google. We have to come into these podcasts and knowing a bit of something, eh? But I'm looking at this. Heni is a marine scientist in the Māori Research and Business Development team. Te mea, but... tell us about your mahi. Tell us about your hikoi and the mahi that you do.
So I am a marine scientist. I currently work at Cawthron Institute. How I got there was a bit of a roundabout way. It kind of started when I was 10 years old, actually.
Wow. So you've been on this trajectory for a long time.
Yeah, I was one of those very lucky ones who decided, I know what I'm going to do and I'm going to do it. So I know
Age of 10.
Age of 10, yeah.
Wow.
I was fortunate enough with my whānau to go to Rarotonga for a holiday and obviously went snorkeling, and when I was in there I was just like, what is this? What is that? Why is it in New Zealand? What's happening here? What's going on? So that was sort of just where it's sort of that curiosity of like, oh my gosh, what is all of these things in the marine ocean? This is amazing. Because, you know, I compared it back to our own moana and I'm like, that's not as colourful, but it is delicious. So the
trip to Rarotonga was life-changing for you.
It was very, very life-changing. And so, you know, I got to give mea credit to our ononga ki te moana nui a Kiwa, because it is through them that discovery, isn't it? Even if we look at our own histories, it is discovery that we really sort of take this journey on. So it started when I was 10 years old and I was like, cool, I'm going to be a marine scientist. That's me done. And so I started off my journey at Otago Uni, and there they didn't actually have a program for marine studies, but I just wanted to go to Otago. I have no idea why. I was just like, let's go.
It was the thing to do.
It was the thing to do,
yes.
Especially because even though my ononga is ki te ka Māui, e tipu aku au e wānau mai au ki Otautai ki raro te korowai o Kaitau. So I grew up was born and raised in Christchurch. I sort of stayed in the South Island for that time. So I actually started off my degree in, it is called, it doesn't matter, I failed. It was in the sciences, but it was just like all the bad parts of science where I was like, I don't know what's going on. And so I shifted to chemistry because I found chemistry very logical. And so I actually did my first degree in chemistry. But if you've ever been to Otago Uni...
I have. I've been for a visit.
Yes, it's a lot of fun.
It is too much fun.
Yes, and that reflected in my grades. So I probably wasn't the best student, and, you know, C's get degrees at that point in time. But I still knew I wanted to be a marine scientist. I just couldn't get into any master's program with those grades. So graduated from Otago, and then I made my way to Auckland Uni, and there I did a graduate diploma in marine science. But Auckland is a whole another playing field. Like, I felt like Christchurch was actually a small town compared to Auckland. It was just this massive, huge beast. Everybody was different. Everybody was moving all the time. And so even though I understood the mahi, I couldn't thrive there either. So I kind of just spent my year doing the graduate diploma, and then I was just like,
I love hearing this kōrero because it just highlights to you that sometimes things don't land how you would think it would land in certain places. So you have to kind of carve out your own pathway, Neata, tiki your uhi, your whao, and carve out your own pathway.
And then you know what else you also kind of realize? I was like good in my like inner classroom work and stuff and doing the practical elements. But when it came to exams, I couldn't.
Wasn't your jam?
It wasn't my jam at all. It's kind of like that question before. I was just like, I have no idea what it was. I get nervous under pressure. So it's not the environment where you can really truly show your intelligence. And so it was something that I figured out within all of these different like places that I've gone to, and the institutions. They are Pākehā institutions, and they measure a specific type of intelligence.
Kia ora.
And it doesn't mean that you're dumb because you failed that. Yeah. It means that is just not the way that you can prove yourself. Yeah,
that's not how you express your mātauranga.
No.
Because those measurements are put in place from a certain worldview.
Exactly.
That is not our worldview.
And we think of things so differently and so like not what they what they have presented to us.
So I'm hearing, you went to the South Island and you went to Tāmaki Makaurau. For me, different experiences still can help shape yourself, whether it's negative or positive, you can always take something away from it.
Yes.
When and where did you finally find that thing, that special thing, the mojo, if you like?
Okay, this is going to sound real sad. I kind of looked down on polytechs because I was just like, they're not as good as universities.
But that is a narrative that's fed to everybody.
Very
right?
big narrative, yeah. And so I found this marine program that was at Bay of Plenty Polytech, or that's what it was called at the time. It's now Toi o Homai. That's how old I am. So Bay of Plenty Polytech, and it was a marine studies course where you actually went diving, you went out on boats, you went and did like actual field research. I remember one of my field research studies at Auckland Uni is we're looking at environmental management, and the field trip was we get on a bus, we go to the motorway, we drive around the motorway, and that's all we're looking at. And that was the entire field trip, to understand what you need to do to build a motorway. And I was like, this ain't it. This is not it at all. Like it was wild to me that was like the actual practical research that we did. And so I moved to Tauranga and started the course at Toi o Homai now. I learned how to be a dive instructor. I learned how to work on boats. We did underwater surveying. We went to Papua New Guinea and surveyed the coral reef.
Wow.
It was actually what I needed most, was that practical and theoretical mixed together.
Yeah.
Whereas at university, it was just theory. It was just sort of like, here's a thing, read it, done.
Right.
It wasn't, here's a thing, play with it, understand it. Not that you should play with chemicals and chemistry. But, it wasn't really like hands-on, let's understand all of the different layers of this. Let's see it in its natural environment. And that's where it was just like, oh my gosh, obviously the tile is where it's at. The tile is where my mojo comes from. And it's like, this is 100% where I excelled at.
What was it like going to Papua New Guinea, doing that mahi? Walk us through that, because that could be like a pivotal moment in your life, right?
Oh man, it was absolutely stunning. Through the program there, they had a relationship with this island that's over there called Lisanang Island, and it's this small island that can only host 30 people. And they do sort of research just off their little island there because they have a whole coral reef that surrounds it. And so we got to go there and just sort of experience just like waking up, go for a dive. We got to see there's these things within, it actually happens here as well. There's a morning period and an evening period of most activity. So a lot of our fish, a lot of our, different types of animals within the ocean, they have this thing called crepuscular, which is when they feed. And crepuscular is they feed in the morning and they feed at night, and they don't feed in the middle of the day because that's when the most predators are obviously out and everything can be seen. So they wake up early. So if you get up early enough, you can watch the world wake up underneath the ocean, and then you can watch the world go to sleep as well. It's absolutely stunning. And we got to go on night dives there as well, and they have a lot of this thing called bioluminescence. Do you know what that is?
Oh.
Bioluminescence is actually a small algae, so it's a small plant that lives in the ocean. And one of its, is it algae? Zooplankton, which is a small bug or animal. And when they are threatened, they let off a light. So that is to push things away. And to us, that looks like a UV.
Kia ora.
Just any sort of thing. So if you have like a splash in the water, it's like all highlighted and it's all lit up. And so we were doing this night dive and we were just going along, and so we all turned off our lights and we lit up like shooting stars because there was bioluminescence on the water. And then we accidentally came upon a turtle, and we woke him up and it like shot off like a shooting star turtle, and I was just like, what is my life?
Wow.
Yeah, so I should talk about the mahi there.
You've just painted a really beautiful picture for us though, eh?
Yeah.
And I can relate to that kōrero, that, he taha wairua hoki tō ngā mahi. And koe nei pēr te taha wairua I roto I ngā mahi e mahi nei e koe ka tino whaka whenua I a tātou. I roto I te kaingākau ki ngā mahi. It just grounds you when you have that experience, so you can connect the physical and the metaphysical into the mahi that you do.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, but let's talk about the mahi. That's important too.
That is slightly important. Yes, no, very important. So I came over here yesterday, and we went to Waitetoko Marae, and we were there to talk about kōrero. This project really started in 2020, and it started with another group of researchers. And they did a report. It was just a desktop exercise looking at all the papers that they could find on ngā rangatira kai o Tūwharetoa. So looking at those, real precious taonga and our real precious kai Tūwharetoa. And what they had found, or what was reported, is that there was 3 kai. There was kaura, kākai, and kōaro. And then the next thing they had to do was look at, are they under any threats or impacts? And they're all under threats and impacts, mainly due to predation. So mainly due to trout and smelt that got brought through. For the trout that came through back in the rā, so they got introduced in 1867. By acclimatization societies. And these societies are wild because basically what it is like, hey, we've moved to this beautiful new country. Let's make it like the country that we left and didn't like. And so that's when they brought over the rabbits, the stoats, the ferrets, the trouts. And these acclimatization societies turned into fish and game. So that's how they sort of continue on. So fish and game still continuously colonize our waters, just FYI.
It's interesting because we talk about it quite often on the whenua, but we haven't really had a good proper kōrero and wānanga of what it looks like in the water. Fresh water and other waters. So this is an opportunity to really have that kōrero.
Yes.
And for us as whānau hapu and iwi to better understand it as well. So we can do our bit, because e whakapono anau me nā ka mahi e tērā, tētahi mahi, whether it be small or big, it does contribute to the better, to a better ecosystem and oranga for our taiao. So this is really important kōrero e te whānau.
These acclimatization societies, it took them about 10 years to introduce trout into our New Zealand waters. It took them about 50 years to introduce salmon. They really tried and, succeeded. When the trout first came in, they obviously smashed our kōaro populations. We had tons of kōaro. back in the ras, we actually used to basically just scoop them out and chuck them on the waka.
I've got stories of nannies using their aprons while they're cooking in the wharekai at Hinanai Waihi, and they go down and they just scoop it up and then chuck it in a kete and prepare it for kai.
Yeah.
That is unheard of now.
Absolutely unheard of.
So sad.
It's very sad because, our trout at all stages can eat the kōaro at its all stages. So yesterday, some of our fishermen said, we caught a trout one time and they had a full adult-sized kōaro in there, like 200 millimeters. So kōaro can only grow to about 150 to 270 millimeters. So it is an adult at that point. They can eat them at all stages. So obviously there was heaps of kai for the trout to eat back in 1800s. And then it got to the point where there was so much trout, but they were going starving because there wasn't enough food. There wasn't enough kai. So what they did was actually they brought in smelt from the South Island. So smelt is native to New Zealand. And they brought in smelt and introduced it to the wai. And that fed the trout. But what also the smelt do is, one, eat kōaro at the same time when they're babies. And then also they compete for the kai that the kōaro eats. So in all cases, like now kōaro is like finally just trying to fight for its life, essentially. So over that period of time, kōaro came into depletion, kōrero came into depletion, and kākahi came into depletion. Because for kākahi, they're really cool. They're a freshwater mussel, right? They're actually like vampire mussels. So when they're babies, they attach to the gills of our freshwater fish and then suck their blood to like live, and then they will like just drop off when they get big enough, and that's how they get distributed around all of these different places. Because you kind of wonder, like, how do they get all the way up that stream when they like don't really move that far?
That's right.
Yeah, no, so they actually hitch a ride on our freshwater species. So if you have a loss of freshwater species, you have a loss of kākahi.
Kia ora. And
so that was one of the threats that they found. They also found the change in the riparian vegetation, which is, our ngāere, that protects our waterways. For kōaro, they actually lay their eggs on the side of the streams, and the side of the streams have to be very damp because they lay their eggs in a big flood or a somewhat bigger flood. And then 12 to 24 days later, they need another flood to come through so it hatches them, and then they'll go out to our moana. But if they get too dry at that point in time, they're obviously not going to survive that period. But also they kind of have to depend on a flood that comes through as well. So it's kind of a little bit of a risk. Kind of like they really need to know their sort of seasons. So that's another sort of loss there. There is, with the loss of the trees as well, it impacts on water quality. So the water is not as clean. As we know, tāne is one of our filters, and so is papatuānuku. It filters through the water. And so it makes it less clean and it makes it less stable. So you get a lot faster water that comes through. And then there's also the damming and culverts.
Kia ora.
Even though kōaro, they're very good climbers. They are the highest climbers of all of our ika. So they can get up into some really random spots and very back country where you'd be like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. How did you get here?
Yes.
There's a dying question within me. I really want to ask it. And I'm not too sure if there is an answer to this, because this is considered to be te mātāpuna o ngā wai. All the headwaters are here. Therefore, the quality of wai here should be great for our ika. Is there an ecosystem in Aotearoa that kōaro in particular are thriving in at the moment?
Yeah, there's a few down south because they're sort of very untouched waters down there. But it's really, really far upstream.
Right.
And it's really in those sort of hidden backcountry waters that hasn't had much changes to the surrounding area. But, the thing with kōaro is they actually have very interesting sort of genetics. They have such a huge range of it that they can basically adapt to a whole lot of different types of areas. What is happening right now in the East Coast is they're actually like thriving in the swamp over there.
Wow.
Yeah, but the reason they're thriving in the swamp is because trout and salmon don't like slow running water. Whereas our kōrero can get and be like, oh, yeah, this is right. We're living here now.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure they can just like populate areas. But what's really cool about that sort of genetic stuff as well, that means that you can translocate them very, very easily. So you can actually just sort of chuck them in the new wai and they should be able to thrive and just adapt to that wai. It kind of reminds me of the kōrero of like, our kōrero tukui or of ia umai te kōrero no where. Okay, kei ia apu o rātou kōrero.
Kia ora. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
E he paitonu tērā.
Yeah. For kōaro, ia umai no ngai te roirangi. So as he came over and stood on Mount Tauhara and came down, what did he throw that?
Yes, he rākau.
Yeah, he rākau.
Ki te wai.
Ki te wai. And mena e wai, mena e ngāere ne.
Ai.
Yeah, engari, ka puta mai te wai. So he came down and he took off one of his feathers and placed it in the wai and it turned into a tuna. But the tuna died and that's why we don't have tuna in our moana. And then he took another feather and placed it in the wai and it turned into inanga, which creates our kōaro. So in inanga, it's our common name for whitebait, even though there's also a species called inanga. Very confusing. Thank you, ancestors.
Story for another day.
Yeah.
Taonga tuku iho.
Taonga tuku iho. So that whitebait can turn into kōaro, it turned into kokopu as well. But if we sort of look at the ngako of that kōrero, it is about translocation. He translocated a species from his cloak to our wai. So ki oku nei wakaro, he actually just brought those species over and placed them in our wai. And tuna didn't survive, but our kōaro thrived. And so we could translocate that from our tupuna in that wakaro.
And this is a really important part of the mahi that you do, which is the merger of mātauranga Māori and science.
Yes.
Nā reira, koe nei e tehi o e rā mahi. And, will we ever, if we can do our bit, will we ever see kōaro like how our nannies and koros did?
Because it might not even be your nannies and koro that saw that way. Because trout were introduced in the 1800s, a lot of that kōrero has disappeared. So this is what came from the wānanga yesterday, that some hadn't even seen a kōaro. Some haven't even heard of what a kōaro is, ko te ika mātua, ko te trauta, like.
Yes.
It was trout that was in their wai. It was trout that they used to feed the people. And that was for a very, very long period of time. So kōaro wasn't even in their wakaro. The project itself is called E Kōaro no Wakukai. And this kōrero comes from iwi ko te iu. So when the kingitanga movement came through and asked our ariki, would you be a king? He said, I'll try to get the words right, e kokopu, e kaura, e kōaro no wakukai. And that was his response to saying no. And this is just, again, what I take from this kōrero. But if we sort of disseminate that knowledge, if we look into it and break it apart, kokopu, kaura and kōaro are all very, very small fish. They're not, like the big, here we go, here's our big tuna, here's the big,
everybody, let's come and have a big feed. No,
yeah.
We've got snacks.
Yeah. So this speaks to not only his manaki to feed people, but it also speaks to his thought on conservation. So the manaki to feed people, obviously he can feed people. That's not into question here. But if he were to be king, he would have to feed people for a very, very long period of time.
Intergenerationally.
And he knew for his species that wasn't possible. Because if he did do that, that would deplete every last kaura, kokopu and kōaro in our moana and our awa. So he was doing that as a conservation to protect the roe as well, because he just didn't have the ability to feed all of the people, because he didn't want to take away from the roe itself.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
When I hear it like that as well, I can definitely see that te hononga o ngā aue rua e kōrero nei e taua. And I'm now seeing it with a fresh set of eyes.
Yes.
So mihi ana ki tērā. So he was doing his part as a kaitiaki.
He was doing his part as a kaitiaki.
Kia ora.
Yeah, right now, with that he kōaro no aku kai, how do we return that rangatira kai back to Tūwharetoa? And again, what came from the wānanga that we had yesterday at Waitetoko, just because there was such a lack of information around kōaro, about the species, where it lives, what it does, all of these different things, what is it impacts. The first part is to educate, because we cannot understand a future for kōaro if you don't know anything about it.
Kia ora.
So that was sort of the big message that came through yesterday, was to really kind of continue on these wānanga to different marae around our roe, so that we can actually uplift what a kōaro is and how it's such a rangatira kai for us. We don't even know what it tastes like, really.
One day we might.
One day we might.
If we do our job as kaitiaki,
Yeah.
ka hoki mai te kōaro ki o tātou wai. The last time you and I had a kōrero, we talked about the tikanga. The tikanga is normally set by those who attend the wānanga and create a pathway forward. So I can hear kua ātatārei koutou i tētahi huarahi, and the first part of that huarahi is around mātauranga and education. And here we are doing exactly that. And e whakaaro anō ki o tāua tuakana, ngā uri o rangira ko papa, te kōaro he uri no te kāwai whakapapa o Tangaroa. Ko tāua he uri no ngā kāwai whakapapa o ngā tua katoa. E he wāhi nui kei a tātou, hei manaki I ngā uri o rangi rāua ko papa. And we've had a big feast of a wānanga in this podcast. E mihi nui ana ki a koe. Is there anything that you would like to talk to around what we can do, around looking after te kōaro, but also the environment that kōaro lives in Tūwharetoa?
Well, it extends back to that kōrero tuku iʻo. I don't know it, so I'm not going to pretend to know it. But I know that there's so many people here that would know of not only the wakapapa of kōaro, but all of those interconnections of those spaces. And in my other sort of line of work, mussels is really like my sort of forte. And when we look at the wakapapa of Kūtai, so i moia rangi kia papa, ka puta ko Tāne Mahuta, ka moia atu kia ine tūpare maunga. So Tāne Mahuta, God of the forest, had a relationship with the maiden of hills, mountain and ranges. Ka puta ko Pare Whenua Mea, originator of water. Ka moia atu kia Kiwa, they had a relationship with the ocean. Ka puta ko Ine Moana, mai Ine Moana, ka puta ko Wareremu, ka puta ko Kūtai. So from the maiden of the ocean came seaweed and mussels. And when seaweed and mussels are not going well in our moana, you just got to look up the wakapapa line and see what is missing. So right now, if we look to our East Coast cousins, because they're getting smashed continuously by storms and all of the, stuff that's coming around. But what is missing on their whenua right now is Tāne Mahuta. And so that allows the whenua, it allows Hene Tūpare Maunga to come down through Pare Whenua Mea and smother Ine Moana and smother Wareremu and Kūtai. So all you need to do to sort of fix that is replace what is missing, replace ngā mea kua wati. So if we look in our own wakapapa, because that's where all the answers are.
Follow their whakapapa line back.
Follow the wakapapa line and see what is missing. And then that is how you can sort of replenish. I just really also need to say this, within our kōrero tuku iho and within our mātauranga, there is so much science in it. If you do know your kōrero tuku iho, if you do know your mātauranga from your roe, you are a scientist in yourself, because that came from observation, that came from knowledge of data points over a long period of time to understand. And so you are actually a scientist. So I get a lot of people come to me and be like, oh my gosh, you're the scientist. And I'm like, so are you. Like, if you're Māori, you're a scientist. There's no argument with me. Like you're not trying to convince me otherwise that you're not a scientist. We shouldn't be so easy to just go and ask, a Pākehā what they think. You shouldn't be so easy to ask these Pākehā institutions, how do we fix this? We just need to look at our own. We got it.
Puri te tonu ki te rongoā Māori, ne? If you sit down with a rongoā practitioner, that's the first thing they do. They go through the whakapapa of the mate that you have and trace it back and go, okay, this is the rongoā because this is the gap in your oranga and this is how we can fix it. Kāri te rereke. I love this kōrero. This is quite empowering there. And it's a reminder of what we already have within us. Whakakaha, whakaoho anō i e rā taonga tuku iho ke roto kei a tātou. Heni mihi ana kia koe. Thank you very much for making the time to come and join us on our Kaupapa podcast. And this is a very important kaupapa. And I do hope that a lot of our whānau and listeners out there take away some beautiful kōrero from our wānanga this morning. Nā reira, e mihi nui ana kia koe. That's a wrap for us this morning in our On Kaupapa podcast. Make sure to tune in to the next one e te whānau. E mihi ana.
Tēnā koutou.